Old Man Curry, owner of race horses, looked out of his tackroom door at a streaming sky and gave thanks for the rain. Other owners were cursing the steady downpour, for a wet track would sadly interfere with their plans, but Curry expected to start the chestnut colt Obadiah that afternoon, and Obadiah, as jockey Mosby Jones was wont to remark, was a mud-running fool on any man's track. The bald-faced kid, who lived by doing the best he could and preferred to be called a hustler rather than a tout, spoke from the tackroom interior. He was a privileged character at the Curry barn.
"How does she look, old-timer? Going to clear up by noon?" Old Man Curry shook his head. "Well, no," said he. "I reckon not. Looks to me like reg'lar Noah weather, Frank.
If a man's got a mud hoss in his barn, now's the time to start him." The bald-faced kid grunted absently. He was deep in a thick, leather-backed, loose-leaf volume of past performances, technically known as a form book, generally mentioned as the dope sheets, the library of the turf follower, the last resort and final court of appeal. The kid's lower lip had a studious droop and the pages rustled under his nervous fingers. An unlighted cigarette was behind his ear.
"What you looking for, son?"
"I'm trying to make Gaspar Gou win his race today. He's in there with a feather on his back, and there'll be a price on him.
He's been working good, too.
He quits on a dry track, but in the mud he's liable to go farther. His old feet won't get so hot." Curry peered over the kid's shoulder at the crowded columns of figures and footnotes, unintelligible to any but the initiated, and supposedly a complete record of the racing activities of every horse in training.
Some folks say Solomon didn't write Ecclesiastes.
Some say he did, after he got rid of his wives.
The bald-faced kid laughed. "You and your Solomon. Well, get it off your chest. What does he say now?"
"I think it must have been Solomon, because here's something that sounds just like him. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh."
"It would weary a mule's flesh to study them dope books, Frank.
There's so many things enter into the running of hosses which ought to be printed in and ain't. For instance, take that race right in front of you." The old man put his finger upon the page.
"I remember it well. Here's Engel's mare, Sunflower, the favorite, and comes fourth.
Immerse wins it with the black hoss, Anthracite.
6-1.
What does the book say about Sunflower's race?"
The kid read the explanatory footnote.
Sunflower, away badly, and messed about the first part of the journey, had no chance to catch the leaders, but closed strong under the whip.
"Aha," said Old Man Curry. "Good as far as it goes, but that's all.
Might as well tell a lie as part of the truth.
Why not come right out with it and say that Engel was betting on Anthracite that day and the boy on Sunflower rode the mare to orders? That's what happened.
Engel and Mears and O'Connor and Weaver and some of the rest of 'em run these races the night before over in O'Connor's barn.
They get together and then decide on a caucus nominee. Why not put that in the book?"
"Speaking of Mears," said the bald-faced kid, "he thinks he'll win today with Whitethorn."
"Well," said the old man, "I'll tell you, Frank, it's this way about Whitethorn, he'll win if he can beat Obadiah.
The colt's ready and this weather suits him down to the ground. He surely does love to run in the slop. Only bad thing about it, Engel and Weaver are both in that race, and since I trimmed that gang of pirates with Alicia they've had it in for me.
Their jockeys act like somebody's told 'em there's an open season on my hosses.
They bump that little nigger of mine every chance they get.
Pretty near put him into the fence twice last week."
"Why don't you holler to the judges?" "They haven't done any real damage, son. And here's another angle, these judges won't give a nigger any the best of it on a claim of foul leg in a white boy. My Mose is the only darky rider here, and the other boys want to drive him out.
Between Engel and his gang after me, and the jockeys after Mose, we got our hands full. I'll bet. Going to gamble any on Obadiah today? If I like the price. None of the bookmakers here will ever die of enlargement of the heart.
If Obadiah is shorter than 3-1, he'll run for the purse alone. The hoss that beats him on a sloppy track will know that he's been going some. It happened just beyond the half-mile pole, in a sudden flurry of wind and rain. The spectators, huddling under the grandstand roof, saw the horses dimly as through a heavy mist. The colors were indistinguishable at the distance, drenched and sodden. "Hello," said the presiding judge, who had been wiping his field glasses.
"One of 'em went down. What happened?"
"Don't know," replied the associate judge. "I was watching that thing in front, Whitethorn."
"Yes, and that horse is hurt, Major. The boy is all right, though. He's on his feet."
"It's old man Curry's horse," said the other. "Obadiah, and I sort of figured him the contender in this race, too.
The boy has got him. Looks like a broken leg to me. Too bad. Better send an officer over there."
Before the judges knew that anything had happened, a shabby, bearded old man in a rusty black frock coat dodged across the track from the paddock gate and splashed hurriedly through the infield. Old man Curry never used binoculars, he had the eyes of an eagle. "Been looking for it to happen every day," he muttered.
"And a right likely colt, too. The skunks! The miserable little skunks!"
Whitethorn, the winner of the race, was back in the ring and unsaddled before the old man reached the half-mile pole. Jockey Mosby Jones, plastered with mud from his bullet head to his boots, shaken and bruised but otherwise unhurt, clung to Obadiah's bridle.
"Now, honey, you just stand still," he was saying.
"Just stand still and we get yo' leg fixed up in no time at all." The colt stood with drooping head, drumming on the ground with the crippled foreleg. From time to time the unfortunate animal shivered as with a violent chill. Old man Curry knelt in the mud, but rose almost immediately. One glance at the broken leg was enough. He looked at the little Negro.
"How did it happen, Mose?"
"Jockey Murphy done it, boss. He was on at thing of Weaver's."
"A purpose?"
"Sutney he done it a purpose. He cut in on us and knocked us agin the rail.
Come from way outside to do it."
Old man Curry began to take the saddle off the colt. A tall man in a rubber coat, gumboots, and a uniform cap arrived on the scene, panting after his run from the grandstand. He looked at Obadiah's leg, sucked in his breath with a whistling sound more expressive than words, and faced old man Curry. "Want the vet to see him?" asked the newcomer. "No use in him suffering that long," said the old man dully.
"He's ruined. Might as well get it over with."
Jockey Mosby Jones wailed aloud.
"Oh, don't let him shoot Obadiah, boss," he pleaded.
"I'll take care o' him, I'll set up nights with him."
"Can't you splint it? Ain't there nothin' we kin do fo' him?"
"Only one thing, Mose," said old man Curry.
"It's a kindness, I reckon."
He passed the bridle to the uniformed stranger.
"Don't be too long about it," said he.
The colt, gentle and obedient to the last, hobbled off the track toward a sheltering grove of trees near the upper turn.
Custom decrees that the closing scene of a turf tragedy shall not be enacted within sight of the grandstand.
Two very young stable boys followed at a distance. "Run away, kids," said the tall man, fumbling at his hip pocket.
"You don't want to see this."
Old Man Curry strode along the track, his shoulders squared, his face stern and his eyes blazing with the cold rage which sometimes overtakes a patient man. Little Mose trailed at his heels, whimpering and casting scared glances behind. After a time they heard the muffled report of a pistol. "He's out of his misery, Sonny," said the old man. "It's the best way, and now I want you to tell them judges just how it happened." But Jockey Murphy had already told his story, ably seconded by his friends, Grogan and Merritt. These boys had been interviewed by racing judges before and, consequently, were not embarrassed. "Judges, gentlemen," said Murphy, cap in hand, a vest pocket edition of a horseman, freckled, blue-eyed, and bow-legged. "This was how it happened. That little nigger nearly spilled the whole bunch of us, tryin' to cut across to the rail goin' into the turn. We yelled at him, and he kind of lost his head, tried to yank his hoss around and down he went. Awful slippery over there, judges. I had to pull up with Field Mouse, and couldn't get her to going again. She's a mean, skulking mare, and won't run a lick after she's been interfered with." "Who else saw it?" "Why, Merritt was right there somewheres, and so was Grogan. They're all that I'm sure of. You might ask em whether the nigger cut across or not. He's an awful reckless little kid, and he'll kill somebody yet if he ain't more careful." Grogan and Merritt, called in support of this statement, perjured themselves like jockeys, and there was no conflicting note in the testimony. Mose, coming late, told his story, but the judges were swayed by the preponderance of evidence. It was 3 against 1, and that one a very poor witness, for Mose was overawed by his surroundings and contradicted himself several times out of pure fright. In the end he was allowed to go with a solemn warning to be more careful in the future. When this word was brought to Old Man Curry, he lumbered heavily up the steps and into the judge's stand, where he refused a chair and delivered himself standing, the water dripping in tiny puddles from the skirt of his long black coat. "Gentlemen," said he, "you're barking up the wrong tree. I've been expecting something like this ever since the meeting opened. My little boy can't ride a race without interference from these rascals that take their orders from Engel and his bunch. They've tried a dozen times to put him over the fence, and now they've killed a good hoss for me. I ain't going to stand it. But the other boys all say." "Great King," interrupted the old man wrathfully. "Of course they do. Told you the same identical story, didn't they? Ain't that proof they're lying? Did you ever see 3 honest people that could agree when they was trying to tell the truth about an accident? Did you?" Quite naturally, the judges were inclined to regard this as a reflection upon their official conduct. Old Man Curry was reprimanded for his temerity, and descended from the stand, his beard fairly bristling with righteous indignation. Little Mose followed him down the track toward the paddock. He had to trot to keep up with the old man's stride. "Might have knowed they'd team up agin us," said the Negro. "Them Irish jockeys had a story all cooked to tell." Old Man Curry did not open his mouth until he reached his tackroom, and then it was only to stuff one cheek with fine-cut tobacco, his solace in times of stress. After reflection he spoke, dropping his words slowly, one by one. "Weaver and Murphy in Engel. It says in Ecclesiastes that a threefold cord is not easily broken, but I reckon it might be done, one cord at a time." "Well, Mose, they'd made us take the medicine." "Sutney did," chirped the little Negro. "But they'll never get us to lick the spoon." The bald-faced kid often boasted that everybody's business was his business, a large contract on any racetrack of the jungle circuit. His stopwatch told him what the horses were doing, and stable boys, bartenders, and waiters told him what their owners were doing, the latter vastly more important to the kid. At all times he used his eyes, which were sharp as gimlets. Thus it happened that he was able to give Old Man Curry a bit of interesting information. Considering what these birds, Weaver and Murphy, did to you last week, said the kid, I don't suppose you'd fight a bulldog for 'em, or anything like that.
Eh?
What bulldog? Old Man Curry could never keep abreast of the vernacular.
Getting down to cases, said the kid, you're laying for Weaver and Murphy, ain't you?
I ain't said so in that many words, was the cautious response.
You ain't going to let 'em kill a good colt for you and get away with it, are you?
Weaver was only in that race to take care of Obadiah. Eagle's gang was down hook, line, and sinker on Whitethorn, and they cleaned up. Obadiah was the one they was leery of, so Weaver put Fieldmouse in the race and told Murphy to take care of you.
It's simple as A, B, C, wouldn't you get back at 'em if you had a chance?